Hi, I'm Peggy Farren. Welcome to the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. Today we're going to talk with Kelly Walkotten about the basics of underwater photography. So if you've ever thought about that, stay tuned. The Understand Photography Show is first a podcast, so if you're watching us on YouTube or watching us on Facebook and you're wondering why we don't have any visuals, that's why. However, Heather, our executive producer of the Understand Photography Show, takes amazing notes, and our guest, Kelly Walkotten, is providing us with some of her beautiful pictures, so they will be in the show notes. So Heather will type up like a recap of just the highlights of the show, and you can look at some of Kelly's work. We also will include Kelly's link back to her website so you can look at more of her work. Anyway, when you're on the understandphotography.com website, the first thing you're going to see is it says click here for freebies. Click on there and you'll get a list of different things that we offer. We have essential tips for travel photography, which camera do I buy, how to get tack sharp images every time. Actually, it's a good time of year. We have 30 unique gifts for photographers. Anyway, there's a list of different things that you can download or watch videos, and all you got to do is put your email address in there, and then you'll be on our mailing list, which we send out a newsletter just once a month. Okay, so let's talk about Kelly. Kelly Walkotten has been on the show before. She was a great guest. We don't invite them back if they're not good, you know. She was on episode number 85 and talking about traveling to India. So again, if that's one of your dreams or goals, listen to that show at number 85. So Kelly's a travel and event photographer. She's an author. She's an instructor. She's really good at underwater photography. She's been all over the world. She's been in the Caribbean, in Fiji, Galapagos, Hawaii, Papua New Guinea, Australia, Indonesia. You get around.
I get around.
So welcome back. Welcome back.
Thanks. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for coming to Naples, Florida. But you're here not for me. You're here because you're speaking at the lecture series for our big camera club here in town, right?
I am. But what better place to come see you too?
I know. I'm happy. So how did you get interested in underwater photography?
I've been doing underwater scuba diving and stuff, and I took a trip to Fiji. It's been probably, first trip was 15 or 18 years ago. I've been there since. Wow. And people kept saying, why are you going there? Can't you just go to the Caribbean? Can't you just go to Florida and dive? And I was trying to explain how there's different wildlife underwater, just like above, and different areas that you go to. So I went to Fiji, and I had my camera, and I went down there and took a lot of really bad pictures.
Oh, I was going to say, it's hard, isn't it?
It is. It's different than being on land. So like I said, my pictures weren't good at all. Not at all. And me being me, I wanted them to look like they do in the magazines. Mm-hmm. So when I got home, I trashed all my stuff and went to some classes. I actually took some classes down in the Caribbean. And then from there, started perfecting, my photography and perfecting my underwater photography, and here we are.
And you just kept going for 15, 16, 17 years.
Exactly,
so
yes.
You got a little fanatical, did you?
Well, yeah, kind of, it's just part of my personality. I jump 2 feet in and you just go. So yeah, wow, I did, yes.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
So if somebody's just starting out, like you need obviously you need special equipment.
Yes.
But different equipment you need for better pictures. So can you start us with that?
Sure. I made the decision, instead of going with an instant point and shoot, I wanted more control of both my shutter speeds, my lighting, all kinds of stuff. So I decided to take a DSLR down, which then means I have to house that DSLR.
That's what's expensive,
oh,
right?
My goodness,
it's
yes. It's crazy expensive. And even the middle of the road housings are very expensive. There's definitely sticker shock when you get into that. And I've been through 3 different systems now, and I like this system the best. It is top of the line, and it did cost me an awful lot of money.
Oh,
but
wow.
My husband just said, do it. I don't want to know. Just do it. So I did before he changed his mind. So you got to house this camera. We all know what water does to cameras, and I have flooded a few. That does, yeah, it gets quite expensive. And try to get a replacement when you're in Papua New Guinea.
No.
Exactly.
So did you drop it, or did you, the leaking,
flooded.
it leaked?
It leaked. It leaked.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I have found that the systems where they slide into each other as opposed to butt up against each other with O-rings, I prefer the sliding system. I'm having a lot better luck with those not leaking.
Okay.
And people that I know too. The same.
So what kind of systems are there?
You know, I'm hesitant because I don't want to trash any company per se, because none of them are horrible. They just, I don't know. There's one.
Some are better than others.
Just some are better than, it's like anything else.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of what you put into it. So they have, you know, some like they have clear housings, or they have housings that will just have an O-ring and then they butt together and then snap in place.
Oh, like a GoPro.
Yes, like a
that's how they get.
Yeah.
That's how they get. They snap together.
They snap together. Yes, they do. I've actually taken that down as well. All the way up to these things that they slide one inside the other with O-rings. They'll have O-rings on them. Just to, you know, make sure that seal's
So
really
that's
good.
the better seal.
Mine not only has that seal, but it also has a vacuum pump that I pump the air right out of the housing.
Ah.
And that one, that's the key right there.
Okay.
Everything you add and all that kind of stuff gets, you know, more expensive, but that has been just a gem, and I know other people who've had that system. I don't know anyone who's complained about that system leaking.
Can you tell me the system, the actual system?
Yes, I can. It's a Nauticam.
Nauticam, like
Nauticam.
N-A-U-T, like nautical, but
Yep.
not a cam.
Nauticam.
Nauticam. And do
Exactly.
they make it specially for your camera, or is it like?
Yeah, they make housings specific to each camera so that you can access every button.
Every button?
Every button. Everything that I can do with that camera on land, I can access underneath.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you know, they're very specific.
What kind of camera do you have?
I'm a Nikon shooter.
Nikon,
Yep.
okay.
And I'm shooting an 810 right now. When I purchased the system, they hadn't come out with the 850. Well, the 850 was just being developed for the 850 camera, and it wasn't going to be ready in time for a trip to the Maldives. So I went with the 810 for my 810 camera.
810 is a good camera.
I love that camera. I'm very happy with that camera.
Yeah, it's not like, you don't always have to have the newest camera.
No, I get it. You know what? I've gotten to the point now, just give me a camera. It's all right. I can shoot with it. It's okay. It's no problem. Yeah, exactly. I think it's more just what you're going to do with the overall picture. And
your lens.
Yes, my lenses. And that's really important with the housings as well, because every lens takes its own port, which goes onto the housing.
Okay.
And so you need to buy ports per lens that you're going to take down. So you want to narrow down, or at least make that decision of what lenses do you want to shoot with. Macro is probably the most common lens.
Okay, because you're getting close to those cute little fish.
Exactly.
Okay.
Or anything on the reef that is, you know, there's other things besides fish on the reef.
And anemones and...
Anemones and nudibranchs, which are kind of like, I don't know, like caterpillars on land.
Okay.
Very pretty. But yeah, so there's other things, you know.
Well, that would be the more common, or I would not say more common, but the better thing to shoot, because once you start getting a little far away, you get all the water debris in your way, right?
Yes.
So you can't get the super clear.
Exactly.
Am I right?
Yes.
I'm just thinking it through. I've never done underwater,
but
except
that's
with a
very
GoPro. Actually, that's not completely true. I've done some model shoots in my pool.
Oh, cool. That I haven't done. It looks like fun, though.
It is fun.
Yeah.
You have a pool in your house in Florida?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I do.
Just get somebody to jump in the water.
There you go. That would be fun.
You know more about it than me. I think I did finally buy one of the bags, which of course you would never take that diving.
No.
But in the pool.
Did it go okay?
Yeah, I took my oldest camera, which was a 5D.
Okay.
No, and actually I still have that camera. And it was fine.
Oh,
but I'm
that's good.
talking the pool.
Right, you're not going to depths, because, you know, once you get down and start going,
The pressure.
the pressures increase against the equipment and stuff. So, yeah.
Never take a bag deep.
No. I wouldn't even attempt it. It's an expensive experiment.
Yeah, the bag was only like $50, $60 or something.
Nice.
They were cheap. I was surprised.
Yeah.
But then I was scared.
Yeah, because am I going to trash my camera?
Yeah. But
And at freshwater, at least you have a little bit of chance of salvaging it. When you get it wet with salt water, it's pretty much gone. By the time you get back up to the surface, all the copper parts inside start corroding already.
that fast?
That fast, yes.
There was, I know you've been to the Galapagos. I've never been there, but there was a local photographer here, and it was like the trip of a lifetime for her, and she didn't have a backup camera. And I forget the straps that they sell. Like, I don't remember the company, so I don't want to say who it was because I can't remember.
Sure.
But the strap broke.
Oh,
like
no.
whatever was, and she dropped it in the water, and she didn't have a backup camera.
Oh.
But fortunately, she was on a photography trip, so everybody else had a backup camera, like she should have. But so they let her,
Oh, that was
And
nice.
the strap people bought her a new camera.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, that was really
Yeah,
nice.
because it just broke.
Oh man, that's
And it was some big name strap company.
Oh man,
I can't remember
which is
one.
great. They stood behind it, but you've got all the expense of the trip and everything else. That
And then she's
is
using
fun.
gear that she's not familiar with.
Right, and I've done that as well, and it can be a little bit challenging because now you're trying to adjust and
When I first started teaching, I'm glad I started teaching when it was just Nikon and Canon, because even that was hard to learn both.
Right.
But this last trip that I just got back from, we had an Olympus, 2 different Sonys, not the same Sonys.
Oh no.
1 Nikon and 3 Canons, right? Does that equal 8?
I think so. Thought we're close.
But well, including me, I'm including myself and my
Sure.
and my helper. But yeah.
There's
a lot of buttons and things to learn.
There is. It's a lot of different, even in the menus, they look different. They're not the same.
But the one nice thing, and I know this is off topic a little bit, because a lot of, since I've been running the training center now 11 years, I get a lot of phone calls from people say, I need to learn all the buttons and dials of what my camera does. And I said, you need to learn photography so you know which buttons you're looking for.
Exactly. Because you have to know what you want to do with them. You can't just push a button.
But they don't understand because they're new. And I understand that they don't understand.
Sure.
So even if you have unfamiliar equipment, if you really know what you're doing, it's not as big a learning curve.
Just where to find
It's just
it.
where the heck is it?
Exactly.
So.
And yeah, the fish doesn't wait for me to decide to try to find it either. So.
Yeah, and underwater, I'm sure that adds a whole nother thing. So you mostly,
does.
what length macro lens? I'm coming back to topic.
Back to topic. I use mainly a 60.
Okay.
Sometimes I throw on a 105 macro. And then I use about, I have a fisheye that's really fun for, I do this shark dive in the Bahamas, and the sharks are everywhere. They're just everywhere. There's like 40 of them, and they're bigger than me. It's sandy on the bottom, so you kind of go down Captain Morgan style, one knee down in the sand, a foot up.
You're not in a cage?
No.
You just go down there in the sharks.
Go down there in the sharks. And when they were knocking me over, and you can't just like reach out and right yourself because sharks don't see that well underneath the water. And so if you're like flashing an arm and a hand across their face, they're thinking it's food, and they'll bite because they're thinking it's food. So you have to be real careful, wiggling yourself back up, and that. Oh, it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm not afraid of it, but again, I know not to be flinging arms around. I even had my mask knocked off by one. It came at me and it turned, and when it turned, its tail caught me, and you can't just grab the mask.
Because your arms would be flailing.
Exactly. I don't want to get bit. So, you kind of slowly, you reach up and grab it and put it back on and keep everything tight against your body. So that's always a fun one. And when the sharks are that close, put a fisheye on there. And it's really intimidating, the photos when they come out, because they, fisheye.
Did you give any of those pictures to Heather?
No, I don't think. Heather and I will have to talk afterwards.
Yeah, because that'd be. I would like to see one of those pictures.
There's one that's on the my profile page of Facebook that shows me with a shark at my shoulder, and that was done with a fisheye.
Oh my God!
And yeah, he was a big guy.
See, people think I'm crazy for hiking in the swamp with the alligators, but I'm not bumping into them.
Yeah, are you sure? How do you know?
Yeah.
I think you're crazy. I haven't done that yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, guess what you're doing this winter?
Okay. I'm game. So,
and for our audience, Kelly is a snowbird, so she's in Florida in the winter.
Yep.
In Isla Morada?
Isla Morada, yep, down halfway down the Keys.
And so we can meet halfway in the Everglades.
Yes,
All
we
right,
can.
it's closer for me. But anyway.
That's okay. It's all good. So yeah, and I'm down about 7 months down here, so I'm here more than I am in Michigan.
Yeah, well, it's nicer here.
Yeah,
well,
I
Michigan's nice where you live.
Yeah, right up until the snow starts and it gets cold and I'm out.
Are you out for good now?
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, this is it.
Good for you.
Yeah. So,
all right, so you have the fisheye lens.
I have a fisheye lens.
The macro
that's
lenses.
My macro lenses, which are good lens. And then I use somewhere between a 35, a 55, right into there. It's a good general lens. You know, sea turtles, you need to have a little bit more space and distance. They're a little bigger. If I am going to do things like whale sharks and stuff like that, then I will use a wide angle lens. Either a 17 to 24 or I have a 20 fixed.
So you make the decision what you're going to shoot before you go down, obviously, because you can't change lenses.
Exactly.
So it depends on where you go down. Is that what it is? Like if you go down here, you're going to shoot macro. If you're going down over here, you're going to get sea turtles. Or
correct. And I usually ask first, you know, do your homework as far as what are we looking for at this dive site? Your dive masters, no, they dive these sites every day.
Okay.
So I will ask, okay, what will we see a lot of today? So if I'm going after pygmy seahorse, which are 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch.
Oh my God.
They're so tiny and they're so cute. And if I'm going after those, I know not only am I going to throw on a macro lens, I'm going to go my 60 instead of my 105 because I really need to be right up there on them. I'm also going to throw on a diopter to increase that even more, you know, increase the size even more.
Wow.
And I have wet diopter now on this new system.
Now, what is a diopter?
The
'Cause I think
diopter,
of
it's like a plus
magnifying
two,
glass,
magnifying glass type of lens. Yeah,
And how does it go?
Well, you can put it on your lens directly. You can put a +2, a
Like on the
+3,
top,
a +4.
on the front of the
and
lens?
it screws on just like a filter. Or a wet diopter, you actually, it attaches to the outside of your port, and there has to be water between the port and the diopter lens, the increasing power lens, magnifying lens. It helps with that focus and stuff.
The water does.
It's made to be wet. It's made to have water in between it. It's a special made lens for that. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. So, you know, you kind of got to know what you're going after. Because, yeah, I've been down there with a macro lens to have, you know, sea turtle or a shark or whatever. I've got some nice shark eyes. Yeah, that's all I could do.
Wrong lens, yeah.
That's all I could do. But, you know, like you said, you can't change them underwater.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to know what your objective is on the dive.
Okay.
And I make that decision then beforehand. What do I want to see?
So do you talk to the dive masters before you even go on the trip?
Sometimes I do, or other times it will be by dive. You know, sometimes if we're diving in deeper, bigger water, we know we're going after big stuff. And a night dive, okay, just like on land, if you were to go walk in the forest, you know, there's different things that come out at night than come out during the day.
Oh,
We have the same
yeah,
thing underwater.
yeah.
But I also know that to get my light there, I don't have much space. So pretty much most of my work at a night dive is going to be with a macro lens.
Wow. This is interesting.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's amazing what lives down there.
Now, what about the light? Because you don't have any light at night. So do you have the like those big light things that go on the?
We call them strobes. They're really not a strobe per se, but
They're more of a continuous light.
yeah.
aren't they?
No, I
No,
don't.
they're
use
not
a
continuous?
No, videographers will use a continuous light.
Oh, okay.
We will not, as photographers. Ours are attached by wires, usually set up to some kind of TTL lighting. You know, they've gotten pretty sophisticated now, so you don't have to set each light, because I run 2 lights,
Okay.
one on the right and left side. Those 2 lights, one will be set more powerful than the other, because I don't want to blow out my subject.
Okay.
But I'll use one as my main light, and then I will use the other one as a fill, so I'll kick that one back. And then for night dives, I also attach a nice little LED light on the top of my housing, and I use that for focusing. because you
'cause
have to.
how-
Yeah, it has to be able to see your subject, or it can't do anything.
You know, I just got back from a photo trip to Tuscany, and we had, you know, some real beginners on the trip, and it's like I can't focus because we were doing sunrise and sunset, of course.
Sure.
You know, it's landscape photography, and can't focus. I can't focus. You need contrast. You need contrast. You know.
Right. And what's different too underwater is because, you know, they could ask you, Peggy, I can't focus. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah. There's no talking.
There's no way to communicate underwater unless you're fluent in sign language, and so is your other person. I have dove with a group of hearing impaired people before, and it's amazing.
Oh, because then you could talk.
They have full conversations. Of course, I only, you know, and we do have some basic sign language that is kind of universal for underwater that we do use. But yeah, your talk is pretty limited.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you bring the strobes.
I bring the
and
strobes.
the LED light.
Yep. And different ports, because I know I've got a few different lenses with me. So
But those are up on the boat.
Those are up on the boat. That's right. But yeah, for packing wise, I have all those. Yeah, that's about. And then of course on my dive gear that I need to wear, I have a wetsuit, and I always wear a wetsuit, even if the water's warm. I'll wear a thin wetsuit, because our buoyancy is really, really important underneath the water. If I just, you know, if I hit the reef, kick the reef, knock a piece of coral off, it won't go back in my lifetime. So the last thing we want to do is damage anything, because the reef is just layers upon layers upon layers of living organisms.
Okay.
So, you know, you have to be really careful with that. And then I will also
So the wetsuit makes you more buoyant.
Makes me more buoyant, which
Okay.
means that I need to wear more weights to counter that. But it also protects me in case I do brush against something. There is a lot of venomous stuff in there as well.
Okay.
And if I brush against something, that offers some protection for me, and it also helps keep my body warm, because, you know, we're about 98.6, and not very many places with water 98.6.
I'm always cold.
See, I am too. And the more you dive, you know, on a dive trip, the more you dive, that lowers your body temp as well. So you want to do something to, you know, to help.
So you have
counter
a
that.
thin, like a summer and a winter one?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, and I carry one extra one, because on a night dive, you know, when you're getting in and it's dark, the last thing I want to do is get into a wetsuit. I want a nice dry one. I know, there's just something about it.
Well, it's hard to get in.
It's hard to
sticks
get
you
in, and it's cold.
I'm acting like I know. I've never put a wetsuit on in my life.
Getting them off is what's even more fun.
Oh, yeah.
But so yes, I got the wetsuit. Then I have, of course, my tank, and I have my air hose, and I have my second air hose in case we have a problem, whether mine breaks or whether my buddy has a problem with his equipment or her equipment. We have to be able to take care of that as well.
Okay.
I dive with a dive computer. They make these computers that you wear now, and it makes for a lot safer diving, because, you know, when you're diving and you're swimming around and, oh, this is up here on the reef, and then you go back down here. Well, we have issues of decompression sickness with all of this up and down business. Well, the dive computer can keep track of that for me.
What does it do?
How
big is it, first of all?
It's small. It's on a hose, and then it's about, I don't know, 6 inches long, but the computer part, that's
Like
how
a
big you
phone?
want the screen. Yeah, kind of like a, sort of. And it keeps track of my depths. It keeps track of my nitrogen load. That's the biggest and most important thing, is how much nitrogen. And this is into physics, which I'm not great at, but Boyle's law states that when the gas will turn to liquid as we ascend, causing nitrogen bubbles, we also accumulate all this nitrogen in our system. And it is dependent how much you accumulate, both by time and depth.
Okay.
So my computer keeps track of all that for me, so
And
that I
how
can
do you-
dive safely.
If you're not looking at it, does it like vibrate or
It will
something?
beep.
Or?
It will beep at me.
Oh, and you can hear
Yep,
underwater.
and you
of
can
course.
hear underwater. Yep. So
How do you carry it though? I don't.
It's on a hose that's attached right to my tank, because it keeps track
Is
of
it in the back? You have to
Nope,
reach around?
nope,
or-
it clips right onto my BCD.
Like your belt, kind of?
Yep, clips right on here. So I have that. It also keeps track of how much air is in my tank.
Okay.
Very important.
Yeah.
I sure don't want to be at 70 feet and run out of air. So yeah, it tells me a lot of things, and it keeps diving much safer.
That's great. I
It
see. I don't
is.
know anything about diving.
Yeah, so you need some of
I've
that.
been snorkeling. That's as much as I've ever done.
But it's fun. It's just so much. And, it's not for everybody. Some people don't, they do get claustrophobic.
That's what I think I'm.
Some people
The thought
do.
of not being able to breathe.
But you can. Your air is attached.
I know. But it just seems. But I know, people.
Yeah.
People get fanatical. My
Oh.
sister and her husband, they started diving. I forget how many years ago, but for a long time they were fanatical, and then they slowed down. But
Sure.
now they still dive though,
Yeah.
or at least he does. I don't know if she does or not. I think she's too busy. I know
Sure.
he took his daughter or their daughter.
Cool.
Recently, somewhere cool.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about diving is you get to go cool places.
You
too.
do. Oh, exactly.
It's like being a photographer in general.
Exactly.
We go cool places.
We do. And it's kind of the beauty of photography. It kind of opens up the world to all of us, doesn't
And you
it?
have a purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
I think underwater, just diving would be fun,
Right.
but you're down there and you have a purpose, so it makes it even more fun, I would think.
It does.
Now, Heather wrote down, do you use filters to help bring out the colors?
I don't. Videographers will a lot of times throw a red filter over their camera because when water is denser than air, right? Because otherwise it would just float around. So the water's dense. So when the sun or light hits the water bends.
Okay.
Or not the water bends, the light bends
right.
because of the water.
Uh-huh.
And so we start to lose color quite quickly. In fact, we will lose reds already at about 20 feet. So a few things can happen. You can put a red filter to help
Bring it back.
bring that back, or else the other thing is the lights on the camera.
Yeah.
And that is why I bring down lighting.
Okay.
I don't enhance my underwater photography in any way in Photoshop. I don't need to. I adequate light what I need to, so
Okay.
those colors are there.
So the light brings out
The actual colors.
Okay.
So yeah, we use reds first. Reds, orange, yellows. Blue, the last thing is blues. That's
That's
then
the
we get
last to
gray.
go.
That's yeah. By the time you lose the blues, now you're down to grays. So yeah. So I don't necessarily run a filter per se for color.
But that's what they do. The videographers probably don't have the lights are probably not as strong because they're continuous, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Exactly. And some of the pros that have unlimited resources can bring in. If you see these beautiful magazine shots of these wide angles and the reef and everything is lit up, you can bet they brought in an awful lot of lighting and it's all syncing with each other, and they got a bunch of divers holding all these lights for them. Yeah, I don't have that kind of. As much as I'd like to, I don't have that.
I know. I had on. Oh God, hold on. I can't find his name in my brain. I can see his face. Was it Mike Carrata? Was that his name? Do you know him? He's a
don't know him.
Nikon guy. He works for Nikon.
Oh, really?
So he had this project that maybe he's still doing called Drummer Love. And he would put like 10 cameras around a drummer, like at a famous rock show or something, and he would get all these cool shots and they'd be all synced. But he works for Nikon, so he just goes and takes all the cameers. He doesn't have to pay for them. I mean, do you have 10 nice cameras laying around?
No, don't I wish? No, 2. I do run a backup.
He gets to do some cool stuff.
Oh, he does, yes.
So now, your backup, is that with you when you're under the water?
No.
No, it's up on the boat.
It's up on the boat.
So if your camera jams or something, you're like, either I'm just going to look around or I'm going back up.
Exactly. And it depends on how deep you are, because when we go up, we have to go up slowly because of the nitrogen that we just talked about. And we have to do a safety stop if you start getting down below 32 feet. Now we need to do a 3-minute safety stop at about 15 feet because it helps release some of that nitrogen. You don't want that to go into bubbles and cause the bubbles that accumulate in your joints. That's what's called the bends.
Oh, I've heard. I never knew what the bends was.
Yeah, it's nitrogen that has gone into this liquid form through your bloodstream, causing the bubbles, and they call it bends because it's very painful in your joints, so you tend to be all bent up. Yes, yes.
Ugh.
I know. I've not ever. It's nothing I ever want to experience. So
Now, has your camera ever broken?
Yep.
Yep. What did you do? Did you just stay down?
Stayed down.
Well, because you got a buddy too. You don't want to ruin their trip.
Right, because yeah, as a buddy, you kind of already know that whoever runs out of air first or whatever, we come up together. It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have had the camera jam up. I had one system that was a plate that you'd screw in where you normally screw in your tripod, and you'd screw this plate in, and it went inside the housing, and it was on springs. So again, once we hit depths, it changes the pressure inside the camera. And these darn springs compress down, and I couldn't access anything on my camera because nothing lined up anymore.
Oh.
So that's not a system I wanted to use anymore. I was done with that. But yes, so I would be down. I'm in the Philippines, and everything's all compressed up. And
how disappointing.
oh, yeah, it's so frustrating. If the expensive camera was not working, I'd be tempted to just set the thing down on the ocean floor and swim away. But the camera, it wasn't the camera's fault, it was the housing.
Wow.
It's the housing.
Now, the housing you have now is much nicer. Is it easy to get to the buttons and to the
Very
dials?
easy.
Just almost as easy, or is it?
Yes.
Do you have to have big hands?
That is an issue. I have small hands, and I find that sometimes the stretch of those can be really far. These things aren't made for women. I know. There's just not enough of us out there.
When that Canon came out with that 6D, I was so happy because it was like, it fits me.
Exactly. And it's the same thing, because holding the handles on that, and then trying to access and stretch the button. Sometimes I, hold it with one and do the other, use the other hand. But it's all right. It's like anything, you have to know where they are.
Yeah.
So.
And you're probably not changing them every second, or maybe you're changing your shutter speed, maybe.
Maybe.
What kind of settings are you using down there?
I prefer anywhere from f8 to an f22 because I like to have that full range, sharp depth of field pictures. So I would do that. I tend to sync them at 2/50th of a second because that is what the lighting syncs to the camera, so that's an awesome place to start.
For your camera.
For my camera.
My camera, that's what I don't like about the 60, or the Canon 6D.
Yeah.
It's a 1/60th of a second, or 1/80th of a second.
Well, that's okay though. You see,
I know, but I like it fast.
You like it fast, yeah, and we need it fast, you're right. And we need it fast underwater because the fish and things, they move.
They swim around.
They swim around. They move. We move because, again, it's not like being on land. It's like trying to photograph while you're on a boat, on a moving boat. Yeah. There's surge underneath, and it can be rough.
So are you using a higher ISO then? Or?
Yeah. I tend to use a 400 ISO.
That's not that high.
It's not too bad. Sometimes if I have to do it higher, but see, again, this is some of the benefits of a high-end DSLR camera. And this is why I don't do the point and shoot because
you can go high ISO.
I can go high ISO. I can adjust my shutter speeds much higher.
But you're not metering then. You're going to be underexposing if you don't have those lights, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, and I do check. I will take a couple shots and chimp underneath the water just to make sure everything's set properly.
The colors or the light, right?
The lights and everything.
The exposure.
Yeah. Yes, because I don't want
shadows.
shadows.
I'm a photographer. I couldn't think of what it was called.
Exposure, yeah, and I don't want like a prime example would be a seahorse. They will attach themselves to seagrass or some coral or
their little tails.
Yeah, their little tails. Well, if they're at the bottom and it's sandy, I don't want the shadows of that to show. So I will check that to make sure I have my lighting because I can move those lights around. Even though they're attached to my camera, I'm able to turn them or pull them up, things like this. There's things that I can do. So I do check that to make sure.
That's good advice. See, that's advice I tell everybody when they're learning off-camera lighting in general.
Exactly.
Look at the back of the camera and zoom in to see where the shadows are falling. Because if you're doing people and you've got a weird shadow, like, a lot of the photography stuff, for studio lighting, they teach to put the main light up high, and then it looks like they have a bugger coming out of their nose. I'm like, zoom in, make sure that that's on the side of the nose, not coming out the bottom.
Exactly. Exactly.
The shadows are important.
They are important, and they're important, for wildlife of any sort, any kind of portrait type of work. And I know a true portrait, is not by an animal, but you know, a lot of us take those up close shots and those face shots, and yes, we want them to
and
be.
if you're using lights that are not right smack dab on your camera, you're going to have shadows. So that's really good advice.
And the other thing is there's silt in the water. You kind of referred to the particles and things that float, which is the surge will make those worse too. You know, if it's rough underneath there, it kicks up all that. Well,
and then if you're down there with the seahorses, it's right by the sand. I would imagine that's really hard.
It can be, yes. Because
and what do you do, lay on your belly?
No, because you don't know. One, there could be things that are living on that sand there that you're going to hurt. There could be things like scorpion fish right there that will make you incredibly ill when you lay on those. So no, you don't. You have to have your buoyancy under control.
So you're just like, your
floating.
feet are like up and your head's down?
You try to kind of keep even, and
How do you keep even?
Having that buoyancy really under control as far as being weighted properly is huge. That's the biggie. You should be able to, when you breathe in, you would come up a little bit, and when you exhale, you will go back down a little bit. So you don't want to be crashing into the reef or
But
the
if you're
sand.
trying to take a picture of a little tiny seahorse, and it's really low to the ground, don't you have to kick your feet so that you don't fall all the way down?
Not really, no. If you're weighted properly, you should be what's considered neutrally buoyant. You don't sink, nor do you rise.
Really? You can just float? But how come you don't float up then?
Because you've got enough weight that won't let you float up. And I actually have to wear more weight when I've got my camera with me than I do when I don't have my camera with me.
Why is that?
Well, you have to, you know, it's all part of that. You have to disperse an X amount of water to make you float or not sink. A boat is built to disperse X amount of water so it floats. That's why you can make a cement boat. Well, the same thing. Well, my camera, between the lens and everything else that's on that, I keep some floats on the arms so that it's not so heavy and just drops. And therefore, that all has to be taken in consideration when I weight myself.
Wow.
I know.
Boy, there's a lot to learn.
There is.
How did you learn all this stuff? Well, you took classes, but...
I took classes. I ended up becoming a dive instructor.
Okay.
Lots of practice. Lots of practice.
Do you teach photography classes underwater?
You know, I have not. I haven't been
Seems
asked
like you
to.
should, because you're bringing up a lot of stuff that I've never heard. Not that I know a lot about it, but I've interviewed people who do underwater photography, and I'm learning a lot here.
Yeah, because it is different when you go with that camera, you know, because a new diver probably isn't a good idea to bring on a camera with them anyway, because they're still working on their dive skills and making sure their skills are good so that they're not killing things and breaking things and
Wow, that's so interesting.
Because it is all alive, you know.
So, what are your favorite places?
Oh wow,
because you've been everywhere.
I have. I have. Indonesia has a big place in my heart. I've been, what have I been? 6, 10, 14 weeks, I think, in Indonesia total.
14 weeks at once or different?
3 different trips. Wow. I would do 4 to 6 weeks at a time, 3 or 4 trips. Yeah, 4 trips maybe. Yeah, Indonesia's big. Philippines was another favorite.
Where'd you go? I've been to the Philippines.
Have you? I went to Apo, Bohol, and Dumaguete.
Nope. Of course, I didn't go diving.
Right.
Actually, the only beach we went to was Boracay, which is a very touristy type of beachy place, you know.
Right, yeah.
So I'm probably not saying it right, but
there's a diving they call it muck diving, but it really isn't muck. It's a volcanic ash, so it's very silty. You got to be very careful. If you're kicking and you're swimming close to the bottom and kicking, you're going to kick all that up, which really screws up your photography.
Then it is muck.
It really kind of is, but it's a volcanic ash, and it's the things that live in there, because there's no reef there. It's shallow. It's usually in bays and things like that. So they don't have the reefs where the fish and other things can dart into for protection.
Okay.
So it's kind of a predator, eat or be eaten environment. And they rely on camouflage, and it's just very different. Camouflage and venom, basically. You have to be careful because they're not poisonous, because you're not ingesting it, so they're venomous.
Yikes.
And things like scorpion fish and things like that you don't want to touch lionfish. You don't want to get stung by these things because it will make you ill.
Wow.
Yeah, and with that, you kind of watch this black stuff, and you're watching for movement because things will blend in and blur in, and it's
So you just sort of float there waiting.
Yes.
And then you see something and you pop your flash, basically.
Correctly. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Does it scare them? Do they like dart off?
Yep, some are scared, some are curious.
Okay.
So it's kind of both. Back to the seahorse, you know, for those guys, you need to really make sure that you're ready to pull that flash trigger because they don't have eyelids. And so, you know, when you have a bright light in your eye and you need to...
You can't blink.
Yeah, they don't have anything to protect that. So you only take a couple shots of them and then back off it and give them a break.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, so it's just different. It's just camouflage and movement that you're looking for. You're looking for...
and that's in the Indonesia and the Philippines?
Yes,
okay.
And that's in this muck diving environment.
Muck diving.
Yeah, and that's become a real favorite of mine. So part of what I've chosen those two places for is because they have some very, very good muck diving available there.
Have you gone to the Great Barrier Reef?
I have.
What's cool about that place?
Oh my goodness. The amount of fish life. I was just blown away with all of the different species and how much fish were there. It was very cool. The reefs are beautiful. They have coral bommies. They call their big coral heads and coral ears a bommie. And that's just to explore. You don't poke around because you're looking all the time. I don't poke at things and I don't move things around. Can you imagine somebody coming in and taking your child and saying, okay, I want them here, and just picking them up and moving them? I mean, you know, you're going after them. They're going to come after me too.
Oh, geez.
Plus, it just stresses them. That's not necessary.
Yeah.
But it's just that watching, because so many things blend in that you either need to know what you're looking at, or you're just really, really exploring and just observing what's there.
What about, have you ever dove like shipwrecks or artificial reefs?
I have. Yep. Yeah, well, the Florida Keys are doing a lot with artificial reefs right now.
Okay, and are they cool, or do they look stupid?
No, they don't. They're all right. You can't tell really, but they're laying down some kind of screen grid work or whatever and growing some of the coral on that to help bring those reefs
so the coral
back.
covers up the ugly part.
All that, yes. Yes. The wrecks, a lot of people like the wrecks, especially guys. That's a big thing for guys. I like the pretty fish, and I like more of the wildlife.
So there's not really cool fish hanging around wrecks?
They can hang around. Yep, they can. But you know, you get them all poking in and looking in the wreck and want to, like, you know, the big thing, I want to swim through it, which, okay, fine, if you can see an opening. If you can't see an opening, I wouldn't begin to penetrate that thing. They get silty inside too, so if you go in with other people and they kick up all that silt, if they're not careful, you might not find your way out. They can be dangerous. I tend to spend a lot of time, you know, again, looking for the fish, the wildlife, the different things that will hang out on that wreck.
So that's not a big thing for you.
It's not. I'm not as fascinated with the wrecks as
I like wrecks above the water, like old boats, and
yeah.
That's what I probably told you this story in the past. But you know, we started doing photo trips to the Florida Panhandle in the Apalachicola area because I went there.
Yeah.
A friend of mine took me there one time. I'm like, there's dead boats everywhere.
Yeah.
I just loved it. It's like what I thought of old Florida. It's is that area, you know. So I called Joe, like, we're doing photo trips here.
There you go.
So I like dead boats above the water.
Yeah.
So what you said, you don't really process your pictures too much. You must do something, crop them
do.
or whatever. What do you do?
Yeah, I try. Yeah, I use the same principles underneath the water as I use above.
Okay.
Try to get it right in the camera. Let's get our exposure correct. Let's get our shutter speeds correct. Let's get my lighting set properly so that I don't have to do so much of that in Photoshop. But we can take those photos into Lightroom or Photoshop, just like our above ground photos. And do what needs to be done there. I will, probably the biggest thing I will do is clone out backscatter, is what we call that particles. The sand acts like little mirrors. And if your lights are set direct on it, it reflects back and you get these 6-sided, 8-sided shapes that look like little mirrors in your photo.
So you got to zap those
So
out.
I will zap those out. That I will do. And that's, yeah, it's like cleaning dust off your camera or anything else. And it is an accepted practice. And I'm sure you have people that do the photo competitions with their clubs and things like that, and you have to do what you can do in nature. That seems to be accepted to go ahead and zap out the particles with a clone. So I will do that.
Do you bring the contrast up or anything like that?
Not usually.
No.
Maybe a little bit, but not usually, no.
Wow.
No, I find that...
You must do a really good job.
Well, you know, a lot of practice, a lot of practice. But it's, again, like on land, you know, you teach, I'm sure you don't tell them, oh, don't worry about that telephone pole, we can take that out in Photoshop. No, change your position.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same thing underwater, you know, we can change our position.
I have to tell myself that all the time. Because you know what, I hate sitting at the computer at this point, because I've been doing this too long, and you sit at the computer way too much. And
exactly.
like this morning I had an architectural shoot, which I don't do a lot of those, and it was like, make sure your lines are straight, Peggy. Make sure your lines are straight, because I don't want to be straightening stuff out in Photoshop.
Exactly. So it's the same, you know, and yeah, and it's controllable. It's just, you know, adjust your position if you need to adjust your position. Be patient. This isn't a race, you know. It's when you go into the forest, you don't run around looking for animals. The same thing. You're going to be slow on the reef. You're not going to be moving at great speeds, nor are we covering a whole lot of territory, because you're going to miss a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, just I can move, and I know, or you learn that things are curious. They might be afraid at first. They dart in, but if you hang out there and wait, they'll come up. And I've had fish that are up and right up against my port. I can't even take a picture of them because they're like looking, and
oh my God,
I know.
that's so cute.
It is. It really is. So it's just fun, and you know, you can't chase things just like you
Well,
can't
they're
above
probably
water.
to be too fast.
Oh, they are. They are. And it just scares them. They just take off, you know. Even with the shark, they don't like the exhaust from breathing through the regulator, you know, the bubbles that come out of that. They don't like that. It scares them off. So you really have to slow down and try to, you know, just easy breathe, relax.
You said you do the sharks in the Bahamas?
That's a big place for them, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the Bahamas are kind of known for the shark.
Okay. It's a good time to go because they need money.
Yes, they do.
So if you're an underwater diver, photographer, go to the Bahamas.
Go. They need
the money.
They do. They rely on the tourism.
And I'm sure the sharks are still all there.
Oh, they're all there.
Yeah.
And you know, really, yeah, Abaco got hit hard, Grand Bahama got hit hard, but an awful lot of the Bahamas did not get hit. And people think because, you know, they got hit, they aren't ready for tourism, where many places are. I was at Grand Bahamas. I left 2 weeks before the hurricane hit, and we had taken the boats over. So I came down this summer, and we boated over, and yeah, so I was glad we got out.
Yeah,
but we watched the weather, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing about hurricanes is you know they're coming ahead of time usually, or you don't know exactly where they're coming, but you know a pretty good idea.
Right,
so.
And they knew that, you know, it was probably going towards the Bahamas, so.
I thought, let's get out of here.
I'm out of here. I don't need that.
I would be.
That's right. I don't need that.
It always blows my mind when people stay here when you know the hurricane's going to hit. Like, why would you stay?
Why?
That just seems crazy. There's shelters, or it's not like you need money. I mean, it helps if you have money to leave because you can go and stay in a hotel or something. But last time I stayed with friends of friends. I didn't even know them. They just took me in.
Exactly.
Refugee.
I love it.
Hurricane refugee.
You bet. Whatever it takes. Yeah.
All right, so if somebody's just starting to dive, okay, they're just starting to dive, they've taken a few lessons, I guess, or whatever, however you start, and they say, I want to start doing photography. Okay. So what's the first step?
The first step is making sure and working good and hard on your buoyancy and keeping that under control. Okay. Because, you know, once you've got your eye behind the camera, you tend to
forget about everything else?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yep. And I see divers that, you know, are taking the cameras down. They're not keeping track of their air and their tank. And all of a sudden they've got problems because now they're low on air and they don't have enough for, so, you know, things like that. So the first thing would be get your buoyancy under control so that you're not crashing into things or ascending very quickly and putting your body at risk of becoming very ill.
Okay.
So that would be first.
All right.
Then once you get through that, then it's more the go ahead and start practicing. Start figuring out the water also refracts, and so things are closer than you think. Okay. So it's about 25% closer. They look about 25% closer than they are.
Okay.
I think that's where this big fish stories go. Anyway, so you know, the thing is to get close. If it's an arm length away, go ahead and shoot.
Okay.
If it's further than that, you're probably not going to get a real good picture.
Okay, arm length away.
Arm length away. Now there's exceptions to that when you're working wide angle and, you know, what have you, big animals. I'd like to be more than an arm length away from a shark. I will be honest with that. It's not my goal to have them come up and check me out.
Yeah.
So that would be, you know, an arm length away. Get close, check your lighting, and make sure you do bring down lighting. Some people make that mistake and think, oh, well, you know, it's daylight, the sun will do it. Well, it's not going to.
The sun doesn't come down that far.
Correct, and even if it does, we talked about the fact that
it
bends.
Yeah.
And so you start to lose those colors. And if you were back in science in high school, remember looking through those prisms and the bent light?
Yeah.
Then, same thing. It's that type of science.
Right.
So, you know, first of all, get your diving under control. Make sure that you are good with that. And then go ahead and bring that camera and pay attention to your surroundings.
Okay.
Just really watch. Make sure that you're not grabbing hold of the reef to hold on, to get closer. You need to work with that. I tend to control it with my breathing. I know if I take a nice deep breath in, that's going to rise me up a bit.
Okay.
And I know too if I need to go down, but I don't want to frail around and, you know, with my hands or my feet for that matter, exhale good and hard.
Okay.
I know I'll come down a little bit more. So I use my breath control a bit to help me with that.
Okay. Now, it sounds to me though that if you better have some decent photography skills before you even go down.
I would recommend that because I did things the opposite. I didn't know how to use my camera except for underneath the water. And that's how I got into nature photography, because I had all this money into my camera gear and I didn't know how to use it on land.
Oh my God.
I know, but you know, again, that's, you know, that 2 feet jump in, we're gonna just
You're
do
backwards.
this, and that's just how I run things. So, it's most helpful if you know that before you go down, have good photography skills, know your camera too.
Yeah.
Because if you're down there and trying to adjust and trying to find things that are, you know, that are there, you're trying to and don't know quite how to change my shutter speed or change that kind of stuff, the fish is not going to sit there and wait for you. You know, he doesn't sit there and say, are you done now? Can I go?
Okay.
So, and the other thing too is it's like, again, it's like land photography. When you're, a prime example, when you're photoing children, you know, if you stand up and they're small, you're taking pictures in the top of their heads.
Yeah.
The same thing as underwater.
So you want to be at their level.
You want to be at their level. Yes, you do, because otherwise we're taking pictures of the tops of the fish, and it isn't necessarily the most appealing pictures.
No.
So, so it's knowing some of those things as well. You know, again, what's more appealing as a picture? Faces looking at each other like you and I are now, or as they turn and you see their rear ends.
Yeah.
You know, I got a lot of butt
shots.
Butt shots that really,
fin shots.
yeah, that just, you know.
I guess they're tails, right?
You won't see them because they're not. You will see them tomorrow on my talk, because I do show that and talk about that.
I know everybody, I always think, since I started teaching, I show all these terrible pictures I've taken because I want them to, you know.
Yes.
And I thought, oh, I hope people don't think I'm this bad of a photographer, because sometimes
you know. Took it on purpose for teaching, right?
Yes,
that's my story. I'm going to stick to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so a lot of those same principles apply that we use on land.
Do you have a favorite photography school for underwater? Or?
I went to Kathy Church,
Where is she?
She's located on Cayman Islands. And I went through her. She's in the Divers Hall of Fame. She's in the Women's Divers Hall of Fame. She really
good. She's good stuff.
She is good stuff.
And obviously,
she has been for years.
Okay.
And so she runs a school, and I actually went there.
Okay.
And that was good. Also, Liveaboards will run photography trips.
Okay.
That will help with that as well. And there are, there are places through your dive shop and stuff that will bring in.
Our dive shop here in Naples, he does underwater photography classes. I don't know anything about them.
Sure.
I've tried to get him on the show and hasn't responded. He's one of them.
Oh, shoot. Because, it's very helpful. Because when people can look at it, I can look at it and tell you, okay, here's what you did, and here's what we need to do to correct this.
Yeah.
It just takes the learning curve down, like
right.
anything else.
Oh.
That's why.
Everybody always says to me, like, when I travel, I hire a photography guide, and they're like, well, don't you know enough about photography? Well, maybe, I don't know. I might learn from something, but I sure don't know where to go.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
But I usually learn something from everybody.
Yeah.
You can never, until you start knowing a little bit about photography, you just don't know how much you don't know.
Exactly. You're right. And it's, again, too, you're kind of developing your own style. I don't want my photography to look identical to yours. I'd like my own style. I have certain things that I've, kind of looks that I prefer and develop that people go, oh yeah, that's Kelly's.
Yeah, well, that's what we teach in selling your photography as art.
There you go.
You got to find your look. Okay, so what's your next adventure?
Next adventure, I am going to Bonaire, which is down off the coast of Venezuela. It's part of the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao.
Okay.
I'm doing a underwater trip to Bonaire. I'll be there for, I think, 10 days or 12 days or something. We booked. Wow. Yeah. So I'll be going there in February. So that's probably the next.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does. It does. I'm looking forward to going. The water is very calm. They don't get a lot of wave action. There's times when this will be, I don't know, my 6th trip probably there. And there are times when I get in and it's like you're in an aquarium. Wow. It's just stunning. And of course, when the water's like that, it's very easy to photograph too. Oh,
nice.
Because you're not moving around. And probably the biggest question I get is, how do you get your tripod down there? Sure.
That's funny.
But that's part of adjusting the shutter speeds.
Gotta have it, yeah.
Because we can take a lot of that movement out with a faster shutter speed.
Right. So. But as you said, you're limited by your strobe sync speed. So that's good to know. Good to know. It's good to know your photography before you go down.
It is.
And where can people find more about you?
On my website at www.kellywalkottenphotography.com. I know, it's that last name. I tried to keep my maiden name, but we were young when we got married. My husband just wouldn't hear of it. It just wasn't done. So yeah, my website there is a good place.
How do you spell Walkotten?
WALKOTTEN.
KellyWalkottenphotography.com.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. And that's where you'll find, I've got a lot of pictures. I've also got some stuff on Fine Art America. Same thing, I use my name. Facebook, I post as I travel. I will post up usually the fish of the day or the coolest thing I saw that day.
Oh, okay.
Squid.
And that's your personal page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the business pages are pretty much worthless at this time because they won't show your stuff to anybody.
Exactly. So it's just not worth it. It's just
I use my personal. I put all my business stuff on there.
I do, and for my, I know it's my personal, but believe me, you're not.
And you can follow. Like I have already too many friends.
Yep.
So I can't have any more friends, but you can still follow me.
You can still follow me. Exactly.
And you'll actually get the stuff. Whether if you understand photography. Right. You might see it, you might not.
Exactly. It is very frustrating. So, yep, I do it through that. And
so, KellyWalkottenphotography.com, Kelly Walkotten on Facebook, and you're probably the only one.
Yeah, I am. It is a very, it's a very unusual name. Yeah.
But it's spelled just like it sounds.
It
so
is.
That's good.
It's German.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming back.
Well, thank you for
being on the
having
show
me
again.
back.
I was so happy. So happy when I was like, because I got back on Wednesday kind of dazed and confused from my, I'm
yeah.
jet lagged. And of course, when you lead a photo tour, you're exhausted.
You're exhausted because
you're so tired.
Well, you're on nonstop,
And there's not a lot of sleep and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then it was like, oh my God, Kelly's coming. And I gotta get her on the show. So thank you. Thank you for being on the show. And to the audience, thank you so much for watching. If you'd give us a review on iTunes, we really, really appreciate it. It not only makes us happy, but it helps us come up in the search engines, which also helps us to continue doing the show. I'm Peggy Farren. Thank you so much for watching the Understand Photography Show. We'll see you next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Get up!